Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining us. I am Dr. Sakina Hughes, Assistant Dean of the College of Liberal Arts and Director of Africana Studies and the Chair of the Liberal Arts Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Committee. Now, I am really excited to introduce Mr. Roy Kinsey, our very special guest performer. Chicago born and raised, Roy Kinsey is a bit of an anomaly when it comes to tradition in his respective industries. Where being a Black, queer identified rapper and librarian may be an intimidating choice for some, Roy Kinsey's non-conformist ideology has informed his sixth album and self-proclaimed best work yet, Kinsey, a Memoir. So Kinsey, a Memoir captures a dark, sinister, yet sincere and potent musical performance. Kinsey's observations are strong on Memoir, shaped by early traumas that threatened to debilitate his belief in himself, as well as the abilities of his family. It is the manifestation of a queer man in a Black body coming of age in Chicago. I should add that another of Mr. Kinsey's albums, Blackie, A Story by Roy Kinsey, deals directly with our subject matter for the teach-in and Mandela Social Justice Day as well. It's a message-oriented project covering the effects of racism, the Great Migration, addiction, violence, mental illness, and sexuality. Featured on the cover of major local publications like Chicago Reader and Chicago Tribune, in and on major national and international publications like Billboard, LA Times, NPR, WBEZ's Vocalo, WGCI, and the Red Eye. His deft skill for storytelling is proving to solidify him and his contributions in the canon of Black music and literature. Kinsey's video, BSAYF, exploring Black queer identity and spirituality, premiered at the Museum of Contemporary Art, the Art Institute of Chicago, the Harold Washington Cultural Center, and the DuSable Museum. Kinsey has shared his lyrics on stages of legendary venues and has recently done a series of performances and exhibitions with the Chicago Public Library's seasonal book and theme program of Race and Music, One Book, One Chicago. His professional development in librarianship has fueled his desire for self-examination, which he reports in rhyme. He intends and believes the success of his present and future creative works will touch the hearts of many because it comes from the heart. Now, without further ado, Roy Kinsey.
Thank you. Thank you for going through all that. Hi, my name is Roy Kinsey. I am really blessed and honored to be with you today. And I'll be doing some songs from my albums, Blackie, A Story by Roy Kinsey, as well as Kinsey, a Memoir. I will start with a song, Mississippi Mud, that chronicles the journey of African Americans coming from the South. This album, amongst many other things, was in offering in an ancestral veneration to my grandmother who passed away in 2016. She was born in Ellisville, Mississippi. I say her name, Helen Thompson. And I just think about all of the other mothers and sons, Mammy Till and Emmett Till, and all of the people that we lost on that journey and the journey of being here and being Black in America. So without further ado, I'll just get started. This song is called Mississippi Mud.
Hi, Roy. Call Graham when you get time.
Yeah. All my grandma's dreams, I put my price on everything. Tapping at the calculator, tax on everything. INC on everything. Grandma loved her purses, Maxwell, I make pretty every wing. No more ugly duckling, I went dark wing on a duck. Auntie went from bird to pluck. I went from all American, how that turned to dust. Miracles can work reverse, good gifts require gifts. I know the flow is stolen, but the myth don't need a myth. They making profits on my spirit, it's been tragic ever since. When I tapped in into that magic. No, we had to have it then. Yes, you right, I'm mad, cause I rock that type of skin, and it's embedded in my DNA. Had to become the DNA to heal. My sharecropping grandfather could have been a doctor. Without the trauma, bet my father could have been an author. We posted all the headshots, now we need a Malala. Money in the air, pulling the niggas out the auction. Exhausted. It's haunting. You haunted. They made sandwiches for the lynchings, now they grandsons and the mentions. They invented niggas and we live with their descendants. We owed our reparations, put a hold to older systems. Y'all gon' have to haul it over. Man, unlock all the prisons. Vision. It's vicious. Ain't that ridiculous? Emmett was murdered down in Money, Mississippi. Mama took the bus down, wanna know over the mystery. One more black boy needed by history. Blood through the rose and concrete. We are the chemistry. God's the seamstress that tailor fitted my pain. I got scriptures in my brain that said I'm able, I came. All the shake the snake, black folks hopped on a train. Coming to the north with suitcases of pain. Always singing a sad song. So many brothers are gone. Ain't that ridiculous? It's happened many times before. With me, virtually, we'll honor the Black Church, the spiritual. When I walked the devil in hell, said Johnny baptized me. I say roll, Jordan, roll, roll, Jordan, roll. My soul arise, Lord. Thank you. So before I get into that next song that dropped a little bit earlier than I wanted it to, it's a song called Nose from my album, Kinsey, a Memoir. And when writing the song, I was conflicted about all of the many things that I was up against when it came to the desire and the responsibility to break generational curses and to understand what I was up against. I also wanted to understand my ancestry. And so that would come in the form of purchasing 23andMe tests or African ancestry tests to find out exactly which part of Africa, West Africa, my family was from. But I also wanted to understand my origin story. I tell a story very briefly here about my grandmother after leaving Mississippi, coming to Chicago, working in the house of a white woman and falling down the stairs and hurting her back really bad. I understood how black mortality with babies and mothers and pregnant mothers was affecting us long before I knew that it was a phenomenon. Because when my mother was pregnant with me, they would tell her, you can always try again. I'm not really sure what the difficulties were, but they had definitely suggested that my parents support me and that they were young enough and they could always try again. So these were all things that I wanted to include in my origin story. And then we get to the hook of the song talking about where your nose come from. But it's a double entendre in the way that I talk about where your nose comes from, but also just the origin story about where your nose comes from. Where does your intellect, where does your wisdom and your blood memory and the raw materials from the country that the continent that you come from. Just I wanted to explore all of those different possibilities and contain it in the song. So it really lays a great foundation for the album Kinsey, a Memoir, one that is my most personal. And I'll leave it there. This is Nose. Come from, come from, come from, come from, where the gold come from, come from, where the hoes come from. Raised by a woman that was raised by a woman, broke her back on the stairs working for a white woman. Nurse one, we would die born, made it out of stomach, and they was young enough to try again if they wanted. In the first 4 days, I ain't come home. Then recorded Blackie in my own home. Decided to be a rapper in my dorm room. College looked at me like I was in the wrong room. I'm too backwards for some, too captive for one. All the stuff we couldn't escape. It's hard trying to make America great. Middle passage of course I'm riding my wave. Visit the ocean like it's a grave. The ones we lost in the belly along the way. Then paid for 100 for DNA. Where your nose come from? Where the gold come from? Read the Prophets. Where the gold come from? By Robert Jones Jr. Where the gold come from? Where your nose come from? Have a book club if you would like. Where the gold come from? Also a librarian. Where the nose come from? Where the hoes come from? Where is the house where mouse is the leader? My great grand saved up to buy his freedom. CL gave life to a reef that had the CL parked outside House of Eden. Amazon deliver us from evil. If I want it, then I need to take a breather. Found out discover increase my limit. I swore I deserved it, so I'ma get it. Hook the U-Haul to the face, you dying with it. Pinky ring off, 50 size limits. That's how they take you on the land. I swore these things made me who I am. But I'm merely finding my way. Got enslaved and sold by the homie. I was raised on bread and fried bologna. Can't take it with you when I cry when they told me. Where your nose come from? Where the gold come from? Where the bros come from? Where the hoes come from? Where your nose come from? Where the gold come from? Where the bros come from? Where the hoes come from? Head, shoulders, knees, toes. Where your nose come from? Eyes, ears, mouth, nose. Where the gold come from? Head, shoulders, knees, toes. Where the come from? Eyes, ears, mouth, nose. Thank you. That song is called Nose. I mean, you can tell I would probably work in a library with that last little head, shoulders, knees, toes. I did some children's readings once upon a time. Thank you. The next song I'm going to do was a celebration of family, a celebration of Black family, a celebration of Black divine femininity. I wanted to honor the aunties in my family, my grandmother, my mom. I also wanted to honor my musical ancestors and the Black women in music who had, and the Black femininity that exists in music, whether it be from Whitney Houston or me paying an homage to my hometown uncle, Frankie Knuckles, with a house bop. There was a lot that I wanted to do with this record, and it all is just me paying homage and understanding and knowing from where I came. This song is called Kitchen Barber Beauty Shop. Kitchen Barber Beauty Salon. We wasn't raised on Madonna. Whitney was my auntie. My auntie wore blonde, sip Chianti. Don't dare touch my hair salon. Rotated on that up with a sponge. I oblige, you're all that I need. Our hair need 3 forms of ID. I let it throw me in the sentimental mood. Pop the cold train to the sun. My grandmama was from Ellisville, and she can make a piece out of any meal. All my blood, we got plenty real, and I can pull a spade out of any deal. Think we all that like Keenan Kill went all natural hair, no chemical. Lie, no lie. I no lie. He wanna golden boy bye. He tryna golden boy high. Lie, no lie. I no lie. He wanna golden boy bye. He tryna golden boy high. Kitchen barber beauty shop. Kitchen barber beauty shop. I hope you dancing with me. Kitchen barber beauty shop. I know y'all can't wait to get back to the club. Kitchen barber, back to Queen. Back to the dance floor. Kitchen barber beauty shop. When the kitchen was the beauty shop. New floor in a new apartment. Cool tour from the store's department. It wouldn't be if you didn't start. I take the weeds from my garden, home with the heart is as simple as the starship. Long way round to found that we pretty. First time I heard sound that I'm pretty. Took that red line, crossed the city. Drove my red car across the city. Learned to juke, not go. Propped up from the back by one of the bros. Found my true colors at Rainbow. Found my true colors at Rainbow. Straight from a page of your favorite author. Alice Walker, Luke Skywalker, Alice Walker, Luke Skywalker. Look off Western, walked up Halsted. You pretty, but took too long to get pretty. You pretty, what took so long to get pretty? Kitchen barber beauty shop. Kitchen barber beauty shop. Kitchen barber beauty shop. Kitchen barber beauty shop. Hey, shout out to Soul. Just Soul. Ooh, they got it, don't they see what she makes with Indian mixed signals? I thought they love my blackness. Birds of a feather, let us flock together. Let us flock together. Let us flock together. Birds of a feather, let us flock together. Let us flock together. Let us flock together. Birds of a feather, let us flock together. Let us flock together. Let us flock together. Birds of a feather, let us flock together. Let us flock together. Let us flock together. Woo! I can't wait. I can't wait to be back outside performing these songs. Yes. There's a few books that have inspired this entire album. Actually, there's a reading list that I probably should have sent to everybody. There's a Kinsey, a memoir reading list that I'd like to share with everybody just because I like to cite my sources, but also I want to know and let you guys know what has inspired me. So going into this next song, I hadn't yet read this book because it wasn't out, but I mentioned it earlier in my set called The Prophets by Robert Jones Jr. I won't tell you anything about the book, but this next song, Everything is Everything, is a song dedicated to my love. And what I realized from writing that or reading that book and writing this song is that a lot of times amongst Black queer folk, our love is revolutionary in the way where we are open to let the world know and to have witnesses, not only that we were here, but that we were audacious, that we were brave, that we were courageous in our love. Not that we were just here, but living with purpose. This song is called Everything is Everything, and it's dedicated to my husband. Shout out WBZ for always playing my music. It's because of you I want to change my life. It's because of you I'm trying to get it right. You the only only one my mama gave her blessing. Act like I don't need her, but you know I listen. If you knew how dope you was, you probably leave. For this reason, I can't let you in on secret. This is how I think. Insecure, Nathan, Molly, Issa. I got married to my friend. In front of the judge, we holding hands. In front of the judge, I cross my heart. Behind their back, I'm fantasizing about the dark. Everything is everything. I got a taste for everything. What's the cost to ride the ride? Ain't no bargain on my pride, no. Everything is everything. I got a taste for everything. What's the cost to ride the ride? Ain't no bargain on my pride, no. Tell me what's a good husband? I know my dad wasn't. Sometimes you be blushing. Other times you be fussing. You the one that I adore, but I'm hacking at some territory I never seen before. Where's the manual? We should jack his son and name him Samuel. Everything is everything. I got a taste for everything. What's the cost to ride the ride? Ain't no bargain on my pride, no. Everything is everything. I got a taste for everything. What's the cost to ride the ride? Ain't no bargain on my pride. I'm hacking at some territory never seen before. 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 We are hacking at some territory never seen before. Hacking at some territory never seen before. Hacking at some territory never seen before. I don't know how to do this. You do. I don't know how to do this. You do. I don't know how to do this. You. I think while we're on the topic of books, I'd like to do a song from Kinsey and Memoir. It's one of my favorite songs off the album. It's called Invisible Man. You can visit roykinsey.com and grab these records. It's the 1 year anniversary of this album drop. Breaking master burst to tears soon as I laid on table. Pain, medication feel like Abel. Dream the dream, wrote a verse that feel like cable. Mama used to tell me clean cause she ain't Mabel. Helen was a waitress, now they waiting on me. Had to do a spell, found out they hating on me. Biggest year in press, I guess they think they know me. Extra bread, I never felt this lonely. All this for stage, all this to get written about on some white man webpage. Like I didn't make the art, like I didn't slave. Wrote the rap to free myself, but somehow win a page. Oh, please validate me. Who am I without your gaze? Come here and berate me. I see the lights like on my eyes, I wanted love that's lazy. I'm Ralph, LA, son, and a Perry, feeling Katie. I got you. Feel alive when I'm on block. Groups who love it when they watch. Money, family, broke on block. DM me your address when they watch. Stack it up like that old block. Time is money, come and watch. My bid in on auction block. Ooh, I love it when they watch. It's a keyboard in front of everybody, so everybody a reporter. Look how good the house you was sleeping in, but you thought it was out of order. I mean, some things you should have to watch, like a going to your daughter. I mean, tax went up like 50 cents, they made vitamin in a water. Watching they call it a desert. Ain't first time we seen a quarter. Said you want for brick and mortar. I mean, it's isn't that exploitive? I mean, yeah, why you say my head to exploit myself to get supporter? Took the long way, I should have been minding my business, drinking water, hungry for the fame, trying to pay you with attention. I can't need exposure, attention, didn't pay my tuition. They'll reach for miles and give you inches. A little attention can ruin a friendship. All skin folk and kin folk. I'm asleep now cause I've been woke. Grandma put pennies up under her trench coat. She lost the house, she lost her legs to get less injury and an insult. Feel alive when I'm on block. Dudes who love it when they watch. Buddy family broke on block. Ooh, I love it when they watch. Stack it up like Lego block. Time is money, come and watch. Might bid in on auction block. Ooh, I love it when they watch. This is when I feel the most God. This is when I feel the most God. This is when I feel the most God. Shout out to all of my producers on this album. Shout out to everybody that helped me make this dream a reality. If you're on Instagram, please follow me at ROY_KINSEY. This is my last song. I appreciate you for having me. University of Southern Indiana, I appreciate all of you. Thank you for having this day. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to share some Black joy with you. This would be my Black joy anthem. It's called 400, and it really just talks about what I deserve and what every Black person deserves as contributors to the building of this nation. This song is called 400 or Deserve It. Produced by LP, the one and only. Please buy this record. Please buy the Blackie album, RoyKinsey.com. Please follow me at Roy_KINSEY on Instagram, on Twitter at Roy Kinsey. Sing along. 100 times we died, 200 times we rise, 300 for the fight, 400 years of Christ, 500 more is like, 600 for the night, 800 overnight. 900 raise the price, 100 times we died, 200 times we rise, 300 for the fight, 400 years of Christ, 500 more is like, 600 for the night, 800 overnight, 900 raise the price. All I want's the booty bouncing on me on a Sunday, post some liquor on me now, I'm finna be a grown up one day. Hands over my Under Armour, I was just like underlay. Used to always pray for Sundays, days I just want summer days, and some of this and some of that, and some of how and some of way. And do it trying to tell you how. I was just like Como Sway, pressure of the family trying to make a way, but it wasn't way. He lost his life, grateful for mine. I just seen him the other day, thinking it was the come away, feeling Kanye run away. Held my time too long. What was it I was gonna say? I deserve some good without no questions. Figured out my self-worth from all these lessons. Bow your head in my lap, ain't that a blessing? Your Honor, ask the question, I don't reckon. If corporations come in mail, I'm checking. Left your cash in place and I'm just feeling like the reverend. Cause 100 times we died, 200 times we rise, 300 for the fight, 400 years of Christ, 500 more is like, 600 for the night, 800 overnight, 900 raise the price, 100 times we died, 200 times we rise, 300 for the fight, 400 years of Christ, 500 more is like, 600 for the night, 800 overnight, 900 raise the price. And out of all my knowledge and my theory, I'll do anything to hear me. Swear I did so to love me. 6 digits a dent and I feel ugly. I'd answer my call after I hit a wall. I wanted bigger than small. Long for some peace when I got sick of it all. Cotton in the field one by one, picking them off. To leave a narrative behind, I swear I'm trying. All my family dying with no money's on my mind. And you can never know that type of grind. So many of my folks know life's a crime. Looked in the mirror, I deserted right there. Long walk home, who I deserted right there. Fix my brows, wash my face of all fear. Then swore to Mother Nature, it's my year. Cause 100 times we died, 200 times we rise. 300 for the fight, 400 years of Christ. 500 more slight, 600 for the night. 800 overnight, 900 raise the price. Cause 100 times we died, 200 times we rise. 300 for the fight, 400 years of Christ. 500 more slight, 600 for the night. 800 overnight, 900 raise the price. You deserve everything, every ring, every dream, all the milk, all the honey. You deserve Dairy Queen. How you even come this far? World, they've been very mean. I mean, the least you can do is hand me over everything. You deserve everything, every ring, every dream, all the milk, all the honey. You deserve Dairy Queen. How you even come this far? World, they've been very mean. I mean, the least you can do is hand me over everything. You deserve everything, every ring, every dream, all the milk, all the honey. You deserve Dairy Queen. How you even come this far? World, they've been very mean. I mean, the least you can do is hand me over everything. You deserve everything, every ring, every drink, all the milk, all the honey. You deserve Dairy Queen. How you even come this far? World, they've been very mean. I mean, the least you can do is hand me over everything. Woo! I could just see a stadium like bouncing just like this. Woo! Thank you. My name is Roy Kinsey. I appreciate you for having me. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Yeah.
We already do have one question for you, and I think we're all kind of curious. So how much research do you do in order to write these songs? And like, where do you do your research at?
How much research? I don't really know how to quantify it, but it's a ton. I mean, whenever I'm going through the creation of any album, I feel like I'm just grabbing information from all sorts of places. I mean, I'm in a library, so that has always helped me throughout my life, whether it be getting to know myself better. So I'm always really in a process of studying and gathering information, and I use that. That's why I really, love libraries, and beyond working at libraries, I'm a library advocate because I truly believe in accessing information to have a better quality of life. And so I do a ton of research, and when you start kind of peeling back the layers of each album, I think that you'll see a lot of intersection. One example is that this cover with the two Roys on it, it's me and me. I was inspired by the film, a Black queer film called Looking for Langston. And I thought that I knew what the story was about before I watched it. And it was different than, clearly, obviously it was very different than when I watched it, but it's a film made by Isaac Julian. And I had been on this journey of self-discovery, and I use this term shadow work a lot, and it's a term that is used a lot in the spiritual community. And so when I have, the two Roys on the cover, one embracing the other, it was really kind of me merging what I felt like my two selves were into, this self-actualization kind of exercise for me. And so where I thought that this duality that existed had to remain separate, this was the opportunity on Kinsey, a Memoir, for me to merge those selves into a whole self and a higher self. But I do a lot of research, a lot of studying, a lot of gathering, not only for an album, but for life. And then what happens to come out is an album sometimes if I'm lucky. And that's what happened this time.
Great, thank you. And I've got another one for you. So this person says, it's evident that your family plays a huge role in your journey. Can you talk about your process with your family and how you use those conversations or interactions to influence your music?
Sure. So Yes, extremely close to my family. And one thing that I think about and one thing that I wanted to honor on Kitchen Barber Beauty Shop was how my house functioned when I was young. When my parents got together, I have two lesbian parents. And when they got together around the time that I was maybe like 6 years old, I would see that they would have a lot of people, a lot of their friends. So it was a very, Black queer household at a very, very young age. But we would always be singing songs. All of my mother's friends had a song to sing during this function. So people would be drinking, playing cards, but also when that person's song came on, they would perform, and the rest of the party was the audience. And that's really how I started performing. But that's also how we show love in my family. We show love through song and through affirmation. And it's really how I gained confidence and began, writing my own songs. And so a lot of our conversation is through song, being able to express certain emotions that this perfect song, encapsulates, is one way that we kind of, it's how we relate to one another. And Kitchen Barber Beauty Shop, I know that people probably think that it's a song about these spaces that are mainly Black. And while that is true, one thing that I got from my family when my mother and her partner got together, my stepmom, my stepmother was working at a beauty supply store, and with our household having three women that were older than me, my parents and my sister, we were always going through, especially growing up on the west side of Chicago during the 90s, we were always experimenting with and finding ourselves through our identity, through our hair. But the kitchen was the barbershop, was the beauty shop. It wasn't us always going to, the barber or going to the beauty shop. A lot of times my mother would be up until 3 or 4 in the morning pressing my sister's hair before the day before picture day. My stepmom would be experimenting, cutting me and my younger brother's hair, putting our head in the sinks when we would, be trying to get curls in our hair and going through that whole process of like frying your hair with a perm. And so there was just so many different iterations and so many different experiences that we had throughout hair. And that was one of the things that we bonded over. And so just understanding how a house, we're so lucky to have, a house, especially a place to stay during such a time like this. We've seen something pretty catastrophic within the last year. And so just valuing having a place to stay, but also how that place that you live can have so many different lives and so many different personalities and be interchangeable. And one day it's a living room, but one day, it's a kitchen, and the next day it's a beauty shop. But it's a place that you bond. It's a place that you come together and support one another and build your identity.
The next one I think is great, especially for the theme of our entire event. So, how do current events influence your work? For example, are there things that happen in your daily life or on the national stage that you feel like you have to write a song about as a response to those events?
Right. I think maybe a couple of years ago I would have felt that way. Um, but I don't really feel that way. And I think that there's an artist in me that is always trying to tell a story or find the story to make sense of the world. I think that that's what we understand in librarianship. I think that's what we understand in hip hop, is that there is nothing older or more powerful than the story. I think, Tyrion Lannister said something in Game of Thrones about how important the story is. So we all kind of have that, but I think that I'm also in a space of trying to process, and we'll see what happens in a year or two. I mean, a lot of it is so fresh and things are happening every day. And I have to say that that's truly a challenge for me, actually. But as much as I want to, I'm not necessarily called to. I'm not necessarily drawn to make a specific comment. I know in my heart, I know what the reality is. I work in libraries on a pretty devastated side of town. And at this point, I'm really just trying to be a support to myself outside of thinking about productivity and writing a song, trying to make sense of whatever moment we're in right now.
Who are your musical inspiration or inspirations in the Black community?
Sure. Rooting for everybody Black is what Issa Rae says. Whitney Houston, Erykah Badu, Sade, D'Angelo, Travis Scott, Jay-Z, Beyonce, Solange, Maya Angelou, James Baldwin, Robert Jones Jr., Zora Neale Hurston, Jamila Woods, and a bunch of young Black organizers. Good Kids, Mad City, I'm especially inspired by. There's so many young kids, young activists doing really beautiful work. And I'm at this point in my life where I'm very happy to be learning from them and learning from a new generation. I think that's a thing that all of us really kind of need to be looking toward, is that they have so much to say and are right about so many things, and especially the activists in Chicago. And so I'm inspired, and I'm in a process of really just kind of like learning and taking notes. But my inspiration comes from beautiful Black people doing things everywhere, whether they are famous or not. If they are contributing to our culture and our liberation, then they have a fan in me for sure.
I wanted to ask, just out of curiosity, I know you work a lot with students and you do workshops in your role as like librarian. How has that been? And does that also inspire your music and your poetry?
Sure. I mean, being around students always inspired me. That's the most inspiring thing that, and I miss it actually. And so it hasn't been going because we can't have people in our libraries. And over the last, since we've actually, officially opened back in June, and we haven't closed again. I have been seeing that the life that used to be in our libraries aren't really there. And it really made me understand that libraries, that space is so important because of the people that come in and use our services and come in and talk to us. So I've been doing things virtually, but part of it is worry because I don't really know where a lot of my teens are. And I miss it. We had so many great programs that I can't really wait to bring back, but it's been pretty devastated. I mean, our library has really changed in the way that we are only using a third of our computers. It's socially distanced. There's red and yellow tape everywhere, all over the floors. There's signage everywhere. We have to remain 6 feet away from the patrons that we're helping. There's no, cash handling or anything. So it's been very much of a change and a shift, but we understand our role as community members, but as service workers. But yeah, I miss the teams, and I can't really wait to get back to our open mics, get back to our lyric writing workshops, get back to recording, gaming, all the things that we were doing before we shut down.
Well, and kind of on a related note, so you started to talk about how the pandemic's affected your library services, but how about the process in your music career? How has the pandemic kind of affected you in that way?
Well, last year, I had my first sold out show out of town at First Avenue at Princess Club. And so Princess Club in Minneapolis is called First Avenue. It's the club that is featured in Purple Rain. Anybody that knows my origin story knows that I tell a story about Prince pretty often. My parents met, their first date was Purple Rain. So this was my first show out of town in Minnesota, where my dad lives and has lived the last 25 or 30 years. Dessa had called and asked me to come and open for her. And I did, and it was just an amazing show. And this is a week after Kinsey, a Memoir, was released. And then the world shut down. So I couldn't tour how I planned, and couldn't really be out on the road testing this new music like I planned. And so that way, it's, we all had to adjust in that way. A lot of artists, a lot of touring artists had to kind of make adjustments, and I'll pretty much leave it at that. But I really did want to explore and have the opportunity with this album and taking this album around everywhere. Like I took Blackie around Chicago and toured it, and really felt good about the story that I was telling, and learned so much about myself through the story that I was telling, and being able to connect with fans, being able to talk to them, being able to sign records, give them my reading list and telling them everything that inspired me. It's just no shows. And so that is definitely another part of the creative process. Although the music is done, the live performance aspect was just getting started, and I was just beginning to perform Kinsey, a Memoir. And so I didn't really get to have that opportunity, but I'm really looking forward to that. You heard me say it a couple times in this set. Like I could just imagine like being in the club, being in front of a sold out crowd. And so that's really what I'm looking forward to the most. And I'm not the only one. So I do know that every creative was kind of affected in a different way. But one of the things that I did understand is that I was kind of forced into and made to believe like us as creatives should be coming out of this with a new album. We should be coming out of this with a new thing. And I think that the times were so uncertain, and that we were in survival mode. And a lot of times, we're still in survival mode, that we were really just trying to kind of move through. And honestly, I just don't operate from that place. I don't write music from a place of scarcity or a place of I have to do this or being pressured into it. I actually create from abundance. And so although I did try, and although I did say, oh, well, we're closed and this is a really great time to be making music, it wasn't really realistic. It was my logical brain trying to do something with my creative brain. And that I had to understand that, my worth wasn't attached to the next thing that I create. My worth isn't attached to me always producing something or cranking something out. And I really had to get real about who I was and what my creative process needs. And so, that was how I was affected.
This one says, future high school English teacher here. What advice would you give to students about the importance of knowledge and wisdom? How can they grow as people and activists from the use of literature and music?
That's a great question. English was always my favorite subject, and I've always loved writing, and I've been writing since I was 6 years old, and from the time that my grandmother and mother clapped for me when they found out I knew how to read, or my grandmother would call me radio because I talked so much. I knew the importance, and I knew that I wanted to work in words, and I knew that I wanted to one day write a book. But the process of writing is so, so, so essential to me knowing myself and to me accepting myself is just extremely important. It's extremely essential when it comes to wisdom, because I really do find that when you quiet down and there's this inner voice that uh, could be your inner child or your inner creative, they're really just kind of asking for us to give them space to be themselves. And so I really, really, I'm a audio learner. I listen to so many stories. I've gotten so much wisdom through the telling of stories, storytelling. I am inspired not only by the books on the shelves at my library, but by the people that come into my library. I feel like people are libraries as well. And so I am always really trying to know someone's story and really trying to impress upon the students that come to rap writing workshops that they have a life that is important and that needs to be talked about and that needs witnesses as well, especially coming from a place like Chicago where, or, just being a part of hip hop where we see kind of what kind of stories get the most traction. I am always at my library and in these spaces when I go and do outreach, and all the kids' eyes are glazing over because they have somebody that is coming in to talk to them again until they find out that I rap and that I work in libraries. But also then they're just like, oh, you gotta rap for us. You gotta rap for us. And then when I'm good, they're like, oh, okay, I'm gonna maybe listen to something that he has to say. But I understand reluctant readers. I understand that we have to find that thing that we like, that thing that we're interested in, and kind of just dive into it. And I really just think that it takes a journey for us to kind of find our paths or clear our paths. And I'm really just lucky that I was raised in libraries pretty much from the time that I was born. My mother was taking me to story times, and when I went back to get my master's in library and information science, that lady that was reading those stories when I was at her story time ended up being the teacher that, or the professor that was teaching me storytelling and teaching me about children's literature. And so it was a very full circle moment, but I was surrounded by words, surrounded by books, and surrounded by possibilities. That's the other thing. I mean, I use these books, I use this information and my access to information to understand myself better and to understand that I don't exist in a vacuum, that somebody has gotten through what my current hardship is before. And sometimes you just gotta like turn that lamp on and let it light the way. And so that's what books and information and music are for me. And that's how I know a thing is if I'm able to put it in a story or put it in a song, um, to kind of help me navigate a little bit better. And hopefully students get to do that same thing.
So Chicago has so many opportunities. Do you have advice for young Black artists in more rural areas, kind of like Evansville?
Damn, now that's a good question. I'm stumped on that one actually, but I want to look into it. I do want to look into it. I don't know. I feel like I'm so Chicago centric all the time that I sometimes forget that there are people in other places that aren't really huge cities uh, that need those access points as well. That's something that I really do want to think about, but I don't have an answer off the top of my head, unfortunately.
And that's okay. I think actually, like, just hearing you talk about you utilizing libraries and just books and media to help you really find yourself and find your voice is also, like, in a way, good advice for anybody anywhere, that they can use, and then maybe hop on opportunities as they come. But
Sure, yeah,
yeah.
absolutely.
And then Shri just asked, what is your favorite song that is not your song? One of yours.
Oh, I love Beyonce's Find Your Way Back off the Black is King album. I love that whole visual. I mean, I know it was talked about a lot, but it still isn't talked about enough for me, how powerful Black is King was. So that's one of my songs. I really love Didn't You Know by Erykah Badu. That is like my all-time favorite song. Uh, there's so many, but those are top two right now.
How about where can we find your work and keep up with you?
Sure, yeah. I'm on Instagram at ROY_KINSEY. I'm on Twitter at Roy Kinsey. And you can send me notes and messages through my website at roykinsey.com. You can purchase my albums and all that stuff. So one of those three ways are great ways to reach me.
Yeah, Roy, I just want to say thank you once again. This has been a treat for all of us, and people have been talking in the chat about how great this was, and you've touched a lot of people today. So I'm so glad you were able to do this with us, and so glad you were able to come. I know it's been snowy and the weather's not been great, so we just feel really lucky to have had you today.
It's my pleasure. This was a gift for me as well. So I appreciate you just thinking about me and including me. Thanks so much.